This is a true tragedy, and it's a mistake of the governor, and you could say the administration. They don't have any water.
That mayor of LA, if that were a Republican mayor, I could only imagine what that would do. I mean, you know the fires are at high risk and you try to go to Africa?
Your governor is gutless and your mayor's gutless. They need to throw them all out. But will they do it? I doubt it. I doubt it. They'll figure out some way to blame this on Donald Trump.
There was a serious lack of competent governance in California, and I think it's part of the reason why these fires have gotten so bad.
Here's the problem, boys, and let's be blunt. We can go Republican or Democrat, which is what these greedy bastards desire. Instead of pointing fingers at red or blue, though, it must be pointed at the top 1%, who is enabling and allowing the climate disasters we are seeing.
And then there's people around the United States who are like blaming Californians. You know, they're like lumping us all in on this. You know, they're saying like, oh, it's karma. The fires are karma because they vote for Kamala every time or whatever they think, you know, like, whatever they think it is about us. You know, because they have such good weather, it's karma. You know, I don't know. It's such a lame take, dude. Like, first of all, no state is exempt from natural disasters.
Comedian Sammy Obeid touches on it because it's true. There is not a single state in this entire country that can withstand what he calls natural disasters. Technically, they're not natural to a degree. They are man-made, so big corporations can continue making billions.
In terms of politicizing this fire, that's what I've been most disgusted by. Who I don't applaud is someone like Jesse Waters on Fox News. This is what he said. He blamed LA fires on diversity. He said that California's woke politics and DEI are the reasons for the fires because Newsom has been tearing down dams because Native Americans, but he called them Indians, wanted some of the river back so they could catch salmon. And Gavin didn't just knock down one dam for the Indians, he knocked them all down. He knocked down 4 of the dams. I'm sorry, this is stolen land, first of all, okay? California is stolen land. Second of all, that's part of what always happens. These dams, there's preservation of the dam. So that was just complete, not only misinformation, but it was racist.
Calling Jesse Waters a bigot is like saying LeBron James is a top 2 player all time. It's calling a spade a spade. However, on the Native Americans front,
every state in the United States is subject to its own natural disaster. So the moment you say like a state deserves this, like that's a f***ed up thing to say. Like people are gonna have their hurricanes, their floods, their fires. I will accept that all states are f***ed or no states are f***ed. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to say that one state has karma, you have to agree all states have bad karma. Because if you look at what happened to indigenous people in this country, I don't know if you guys know about this in Sacramento, but there were indigenous people in this country before we got here. Before they even found the gold, if you believe it or not. And they found that, so the indigenous people were here, and basically, in some shape or form, they all got displaced or killed. And some of them displaced multiple times. There's probably a stat out there that shows that most people in the United States at some point will be displaced because of a natural disaster. So it's collective karma. We're all equally If you're in a state and you think another state has bad karma, not you, you're on fentanyl for sure. And that's...
Obeid sees the similarities.
There's been a 55% overall increase for calls for service, and these are life-saving services since 2010 with 68 less sworn personnel. This service delivery model is no longer sustainable. We are in need of additional funding and support that matches the pure enormity of our responsibility as first responders and public safety providers.
Fire Chief Crowley said this in May of 2024. Recently, she was asked by a local Fox affiliate if the city of LA failed her in their department. After being asked over and over again, she'd say yes.
There was a lot of problems with putting out this fire. The firefighters were doing their absolute best, but there was limited water reserves in certain areas. There was limited staffing on the firefighters. And so naturally you ask why? Why was this? The general LA City does in fact control a lot of where these fires are, and there were cuts to the fire budget in the last year. And it was cut specifically by the mayor's administration, the mayor Karen Bass, who personally I think should resign as mayor. And I would even go so far to say she should resign as a Karen because say what you will about Karens, at least they get done. Okay?
It's a good joke, coupled with warranted criticisms.
Can you talk about the reserve fund? Last year, there was a lot of concern that the reserve fund had fallen below 4% and was heading toward that 2.75 number that I think makes it difficult for the city to authorize spending. Do you know how low it has gotten at this point and how quickly you're burning through the reserve? Do you have any concern about blowing through the reserve before the state and federal money will arrive?
So let me just say that, as I said a few minutes ago, our number one priority right now is to save lives, to protect lives, to save homes. I'm not here to talk about the status of our budget. If you would like to do that on another occasion, that would be fine in terms of the reserve fund. I don't have those concerns right now, and I will say that after our first priority, then we will look back at everything that was done to do an evaluation to see what worked and what didn't work. Thank you.
Sticking with this theme.
And so Karen Bass, in her administration's planning for the budget, did in fact cut the fire budget for this fiscal year. Now, a lot of people are upset about this particular statement because they were planning to increase the fire budget as time went on. However, that leaves this year very vulnerable. Like, that is clearly a problem that leadership foresight could have prevented. Like, yes, I'm glad that you're forward thinking and caring about the future, but you have to take care of now too. Can you imagine if you were on a plane, on a flight, and the pilot comes in like,
just want to let you guys know, I am still in training, okay? But, so I actually don't know how to land this thing, but here's the good news. In 2 years from now, I'll be done with my certification, and I'll be better than any pilot you've had previously, okay? So in 2 years from now, this flight will be better than your last flight, for sure. Sorry, your previous flight, because this is your last flight, in fact, so.
Obeid puts it in perspective for most to comprehend. If you'd like to see more of Sammy Obeid's stand-up in person, head to SammyKO.com for more info. His YouTube channel for more long-form content that he even stated on stage he edits himself. His Facebook can be found at facebook.com/SammyKObeid. Instagram is at Sammy Obeid, and TikTok while you still can, of course. That's always popping as well.
Culture has become pretty neutered. We're missing the masculine energy. That's why when you walk into the offices at Meta, you'll see, football tables, pool tables, dudes hanging dong, classic guy stuff. You have this idea that, masculinity is toxic. And it's like, no, you want feminine energy. You want masculine energy. For me personally, lots of women want to touch me. My body is good and not slimy. I think having a culture that celebrates aggression a bit more is good. When me and my guy friends are just hanging out, we don't shy away from that aggression. Sometimes I get so mad that I say things like, why you oughta, and my guy friends, they really get that. I think we basically have gotten to this point where you couldn't say things that were, mainstream discourse. Hate speech is actually good. I would say personally, my favorite slur is fat. So by removing some of those guardrails, I think we're actually getting back to our American roots. I miss the days where you could log on and see a video of a guy getting his arm ripped off in a horrible machinery accident. So, we've brought that back to Meta. I was recently saying to my big group of guy friends, how did we get here? And we were all laughing about that. I think I bring a lot of humor to our squad. They're actually all just right behind this curtain right here. And they really like me a lot. I actually started doing MMA fighting recently. Do you think that's cool? Or great. Cool, just checking.
By far one of the best impressions I've ever seen of Mark Zuckerberg, courtesy of comedian Cassie Wilson. But it wasn't just her.
List of things Mark Zuckerberg looked like while announcing hate speech is allowed on Facebook again. If Bach from Wicked attended Howard University. A Saved by the Bell episode where Screech goes to the Source Awards. The Instacart app icon during Black History Month. Like a cop undercover at Supreme. An out-of-work DJ / magician. Look at his eyes, for real. Tell me he does not look like he let one of the N-words in the song slip. He looked like an intern for Chet Hanks. He looked kind of like if Napoleon Dynamite grew up in Detroit. Not everyone will get that. Like he was walking past a FUBU and got pooped on by a pigeon so hard he ran in and was like, "You need to help me fast." Zuckerberg looked like he wearing the first chain in history that's screaming to be snatched. This looked like the first cross-racial midlife crisis. He looked like if Eminem did spell his name like the candy. Hey Zuck, stay good, dog.
Comedian Josh Johnson also crushed this man's new pick-me look. And he's doing this for The Daily Show's TikTok page. And hey, just a quick break in the action. You should go subscribe to my new show, The Rick Strom Show. I'm going to be interviewing people from sports, music, journalists, authors, sports doctors. It's going to be fantastic. Please go subscribe. Thank you. Before we dive in, please check out Cassie's content on that guy's own platform of Instagram. I feel weird even saying it. And of course, her YouTube, which can be found at Cassie Wilson on this very site. Speaking of that dude and the banning of TikTok.
Hey, you guys.
Hi, the government. What is it now?
I just wanted to let you know that we're really worried about you guys. And because we have your best interest at heart, we have decided to ban TikTok.
Literally nobody wants that.
It's all about protecting the American people.
Right, so California is currently on fire. New York floods regularly. Asheville was basically just wiped off the map. Where's the aggressive climate disaster legislation that we have all been screaming for?
We definitely hear you. And we wanted to say that we have decided to criminalize homelessness.
The Supreme Court giving states the green light to criminalize homelessness while doing nothing about soaring housing prices and gutting social programs is one of the cruelest things you could do.
We totally understand. And what we're thinking is we should not raise the federal minimum wage ever.
Man, you really hate us, don't you?
Not all of you. We really like those guys, Malk and Ewan.
Those guys who were losers in high school and instead of working on themselves decided to destroy the planet and try to take over the world?
Yeah, they're really rich and we think that's awesome.
Do you understand that no one will be safe from climate disaster? You cannot buy your way out of this or evacuate to Mars. The planet will still be here. It will just slowly become more and more uninhabitable.
Totally. So we're thinking, let's make cuts to food stamps.
Wilson has a bone to pick, as we all should. I'm just going to make myself very clear here, all right? Because I have also made my feelings known, how I feel about this individual, this petulant child who is trying to remake his image. And then when he tried to do it, still is failing, he started doing jujitsu. And he agreed with Joe Rogan that it makes you even more libertarian. That is not the case. That is not it at all. Many people have spoken on that. I would point you towards the comrade Luke Thomas and his comments on that very subject. One thing that is happening that I'm very proud of is the fact that many folks on TikTok are banding together and are plummeting Meta stock. That is a good thing. Because what it is showing is two things. Number one, that when there is class unity and solidarity, anything is possible. Even going up against one of the most powerful men in this country who is worth billions upon billions of dollars. Second, what it shows is the power of the electorate. This is a decision that no one is in favor of, except for the people who bankroll the politicians that are in positions of power. There is a reason why, as one TikToker exposed, how many members of Congress voted against the TikTok ban and also have stock in Meta. We have all of this information. We know why they are voting to ban it. It's because they receive the support from Zuckerberg and they want his platforms to succeed. But this is backfiring. And it's backfiring quite well. And astoundingly even. Because many Americans are going to Red Note. And when they're going on it, they are seeing not only the propaganda that was served to us over and over again over the years, but also how when our tax dollars can be used for good things like healthcare, better groceries, better living conditions, affordable housing, some of the most incredible technology that I have seen, the infrastructure, the trains. Have y'all checked out what is going on over there? Them mocking us for having to work 2 jobs and earning $7.25 an hour. Not being able to get an MRI because it's going to cost over $1,000. I mean, this plan by Zuckerberg, because he has lobbied Congress over and over again to ban TikTok, and this has been years in the making, has backfired spectacularly. And I am here for it.
We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids. No, I really mean it, but think how we think about it.
It is hard to believe this man not only aged so drastically in 4 years, but in addition, the legacy he leaves behind, it will likely be deemed as a failure, as he did not do everything in his power to rally the electorate against another Donald Trump presidency.
Shout out to Joey, though. He was, obviously a horrible president, but very funny, right? Like the funniest guy we could have chosen to be president. Like, if you were voting according to who would be, like, the best hang, it would be him 100%. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, just a David Joe behind, you know what I mean? He's like, meet me down by the river. You know what I mean? He just shows up on 2 jet skis, you know what I mean? Hands you a bunch of pills, like, take some of these. You know what I mean? He's like, hop on. I know a couple Puerto Rican bros that run a Baskin Robbins. Turns out the 13th flavor is
Comedian Stavros Halkias hilariously looks back with a different take. And many laughs will ensue when one hangs out with Joseph Robinette Biden.
People are waiting for relief. I got them $1.9 trillion relief so far. They're going to be getting checks in the mail that are consequential this week for childcare. A lot has been happened already, number 1. Number 2, I'm going to fight like heck. Just remind him, I wrote the bill on the environment. Why would I not be for it? Guess what? Employers can't find workers. I said, yeah, pay them more. This is an employees bargaining chip now. What's happening? They're going to have to compete and start paying hard-working people a decent wage.
Biden, born in 1942, is 81 years of age. He has spent more than half of his adult life in Congress representing the state of Delaware. Speaking of, Stavros has a few thoughts.
Joey B, the king. It is awesome that he just gets to be like, here's his whole life, right? Is the center of who gives about Delaware, right? I feel like it's like 4 guys do a fist fight in the middle of the Delaware town square, and whoever wins gets to be the senator. You know what I mean? That's how it happened. Who cares about that? All they got is Rehoboth Beach. You know what I mean? Unless you're like a I don't know, middle class gay couple. Like, what do you care about Delaware for, right? So anyway, so he gets to be the center of the estate. Who gives a about Delaware? It only exists so you have to pay tolls from Maryland to New York. That's the whole reason. Delaware exists to take tolls. That's all it's there for.
Jokes aside, it's the same old debate we have with states like Montana and Idaho and Nebraska. Why is there equal representation and the same amount of say given to states such as these when, for example, California has way more Americans, but their voices are essentially stripped? We're giving votes to land.
And then he's like, I'm going to be Democrat, but I'm racist. That was his thing, right? We're just calling black people super predators and like that.
Man, I hate to do this because Stabby is one of my favorite comics out today, but it wasn't Joe, it was her.
But we also have to have an organized effort against gangs. Just as in a previous generation we had an organized effort against the mob. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel.
Now, don't get me wrong, Biden has a very, very bad history. He was on the record opposing busing, which he was called out on in the 2020 Democratic debates by his now VP Kamala Harris. He supported the 94 crime bill, which led to a boom in the prison industrial complex, notes researcher Iname Shettiar of the Justice Action Network. Iname would say he did call it the Biden crime bill. In 2006, on an episode of C-SPAN's Road to the White House, Biden would say, "You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking." In January 2007, he said to Barack Obama, "I mean, you got the first sort of mainstream African-American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy."
Biden was also a key architect of the devastating Iraq War. Responsibility for the war is often blamed on George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and other Republicans. But in reality, Biden played a key role as a Democrat. In the lead up to the war, Biden convened a series of Senate hearings to drum up support for the invasion on the basis of flimsy intelligence material being presented by the Republicans.
What is the threat from Iraq? Obviously, to fully answer this question will require us to have additional enclosed hearings.
Not a single anti-war voice was invited to the hearings.
Once again, the list goes on and on and on.
My name is Joe Biden. I'm Barack Obama's vice president. And I'm Jill Biden's husband. Mr. President, welcome back to the White House, man. Feels like the good old days.
On this relationship, Stavros has an accurate take to add.
And then Obama's like, damn, I need a running mate that racist people are going to feel comfortable with. And they're like, we got your guy. We got the guy you need. Which is hilarious.
Let's dive further. Via NPR, his role on Obama's ticket was less to appeal to people of color than it was to reassure white people. They cite The Times, who wrote, Obama was deeply worried about a backlash against a black man at the top of the ticket and believed that an older white running mate would ease fears in battleground states.
And then, by the way, the thing I skipped is he's kept stealing JFK speeches. I don't know if you guys know this. This is a completely true story. He kept running for president and losing in the 80s. And he was just stealing JFK speeches. Like, he did it 3 times. It was an awesome move, right?
Is this true? We'll take it from the Washington Post's fact check.
But this standard is not a measure of how we can evaluate the condition of our society. It cannot measure the health of our children, the quality of our education, the joy of their play.
Yet the gross national product does not allow for the health of our children, the quality of their education, or the joy of their play.
Let us pledge that our generation of Americans will pay any price, bear any burden, accept any challenge, and meet any hardship to secure the blessings of prosperity and the promise of opportunity for our children.
We shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and the success of liberty.
And we'll let you be the judge on that one. For more on the hilarious Stavros Halkias, go to www.stavvy.biz to check out tour dates. His Instagram handle can be found at StavvyBaby2, and of course, Facebook at facebook.com/StavvyBaby. Hey, I appreciate you watching. Now, if you can, please do become a channel member by going to youtube.com/TYTsports and clicking the join button. If that's too much for you, you can just go to tyt.com/join to become a member. It helps all of us out here at the Young Turks and keeps our network afloat. In addition, you could follow me on my socials on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate the love. Have a great day.